year ago, Labu Flutes reached out to me and asked if I wanted to try a couple of their instruments. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. And then the whole world shut down. So we weren't able to connect at the time, but they reached out again and they were able to get a couple of these things over to me. Now, full disclosure, I've not been paid to make a video. They didn't ask me to make a video. They didn't ask me to say nice things about it. If they had, I probably would have said no. And the reason for that is because every Bangladesh whistle or Indian Bansuri flute I've ever played has been dime store garbage. Certainly not to say that all of them are, but my experience has not been great. And in fairness, a lot of the tin whistles that are out there are also dime store garbage. But they tend to fit the musical style pretty well, whereas I haven't found that to be the case with these. The other side of the coin is that bamboo can make a lovely instrument. The first flute I ever had was in the key of C, which made it a very difficult stretch, so it was tough to play, but the tone was wonderful. Likewise, the Olwells have made flutes out of bamboo for years, and they're brilliant instruments. They're absolutely fantastic. So it's definitely possible. Does this instrument succeed? Let's find out. Labu Flutes. Look at this. So I got 3 different things. What are we looking at here? I do like the cases. Okay. There appears to be some plastic or glue on the edge. I have no idea what that is. Hopefully it's not toxic. We're going to assume so. Let's find out. Well, to be honest, it's a lot more responsive than I was expecting. Let's see what this guy is here. This is a smaller one. I'm going to compare that to the A whistle just for tuning purposes and to see how it compares to something I'm a little bit more familiar with. So here we go again now. We've got D. This is a D whistle, I'm assuming. I'm not quite sure what this extra hole is for here. So that will be interesting to find out. We shall see. D 4.40 tune. Interesting. Okay, it's a lot more responsive than I was expecting. That's genuinely surprising. Wow, okay, definitely surprising. Let's check this last one and see what this is all about. Oh, a G whistle. This is like the one key I don't have. Never really found a use for it, but... Well, again, better than I expected, that's for sure. Those of you who know this channel know that I focus on Irish traditional music. That's what I play, it's what I know, it's what I've been growing up playing for my whole life, really. And so my question is, are these instruments suitable for use in that style of music? Because that's really the only question that I can answer. Right off the bat, I'm amazed at how good the tone is. It's leaps and bounds better than every other instrument that I've played that looks like this. And I've played a fair few of them, typically in Renaissance fairs and things like that, and they didn't feel very well built. They definitely didn't sound very well built. I'm not a huge fan of the ribbon and the glue and all that kind of thing. I assume that's part of the tradition of these instruments. That's just a matter of style. I'm definitely not a big fan of the D.9 4.40 tune. This is not ideal, but the tone, the quality is pretty solid. It responds a lot like a whistle should, at least a lot like I would expect it to. I'm fascinated by this G whistle because, like I said, it's one that I don't own. It's significantly bigger than a lower whistle. But I could see it being useful, at least in a recording session capability. I look at the embouchure hole, the fipple here, and it looks like somebody crafted it with the blunt edge of a shovel. I can't believe the tone is as good as it is. It just looks rough, but it doesn't sound rough. It's not extremely loud, which I think is okay, especially if you are using this in a recording session environment. That's kind of where I would put it into use. And then if you've got a good microphone in front of you, you don't have to be all that loud. So I think that's okay. it's very quiet. In this A flute, I am definitely curious about this waxy stuff around the embouchure hole. I have no idea what the story is with that. I would assume that that's possible that it could come off, but I guess I don't know that for a fact. It's kind of fun. It's fun to play. I don't know where I would ever use it. If I was playing on a lower range like this, I would probably play the A whistle that I've got. But it's fun. Let's do a little tuning check and compare with the other whistles that I've got that you guys are probably a little more familiar with on this channel. So since I was just playing the A flute, let's compare the A whistle. This is the one that I've got from Gary Humphrey. Well, that's not an A. That's our first problem. Let's find out what key this thing is actually in. It's an F. Surprise! It's in the key of F. Okay, so let me compare with the F whistle. And let's try that again. Okay, let's see how that sounds. It's got a bit of punch to it. Now that we know what key we're in, it's definitely got some volume, which is surprising, and it's clear. Let's see how the tuning checks out here. Let's use our handy dandy app. Well, it's low, which ordinarily wouldn't be a huge issue, but it's not tunable. So there's that. You may be able to force certain notes in tune. By rolling the flute in and out. You have to roll it out to make it a little bit sharper. So you might be able to get them in tune, but that's something to keep in mind. That being said, this is not really something you'd probably be on stage with. So you're probably not going to be playing with a lot of other people with something like this. So that's okay. Let's compare our D whistle. Well, we seem to have another problem. No wonder this feels bigger. This is not a D whistle, this is an A whistle. And it's also flat. Now I'm curious what key this one is, if this says G, if it really is. It's not, it's a low D whistle. Wow. Okay, real talk, are these things useful for Irish music? Well, I can't really tell. The low D, which this G whistle we now know is a low D whistle, probably not. As a G whistle, it was sort of interesting. As a low D, it's kind of weak. That's the trouble. Or at least as far as the Irish traditional music would go. The one that we're now calling an F flute, that, you know, it's so powerful, I could kind of see a use for this. The key is a little weird, and there's just not a huge need for whistles and flutes in that key, except for very specialized circumstances, which is why I have the F whistle, because we do a song that needs it. But if you needed it, it's surprisingly solid, surprisingly decent, yeah. On what we now know as an A whistle, I'm a little torn, because it's remarkably responsive. When you compare this to something like a Gary Humphrey, I mean, the Humphrey is tunable, this is a metal professional instrument, but this works remarkably well. It holds up, it compares well. Now again, not being tunable is a bit of an issue, but for what you get for a piece of cane, I think they did a hell of a job with it, to be honest. And I would be curious to see what an actual D whistle sounds like, to see how that compares, because that's going to be everybody's first whistle. Nobody's starting with an A whistle, or at least you shouldn't be, which makes the question of whether or not you should buy this a little bit more tricky, because the fact that they're not labeling these right, that concerns me, that out of 3 whistles, not one of them is in the right key. So why would you go from something like this versus a Fadog or a Dixon or a Generation? Well, that's where the D whistle, if you can actually get a D whistle, if it's strong and if it's a good sound, it might be worth it. And it definitely would fit, judging again by what I know about this A whistle. That's the best consumer advice that I can give when we're trying to put the square peg in a round hole here. We're not really using the right tool for the job, I would say. But if you do find yourself with one of these, I imagine you'll be pleasantly surprised. I certainly am. I hope this is of some value to you guys. Let me know what y'all think. I'll see y'all in the next one. Cheers, guys.